Finding a sweatshirt for the price of $15 is an absolute steal. What a discount. But what would you do if I told you that that discount came at the price of a human life? Laura Anastasia, award-winning editor, writer, and reporter, received a story of Taslima Akhtar, a woman who worked at Windy Apparel's factory in Bangladesh. Taslima Akhtar was a 23-year-old woman working in a factory for a fast fashion production. She developed a cough and a fever and repeatedly asked her manager to give her time off and to step away, but he repeatedly told her that if she were to leave or miss any time from her work, she would be fired. With no other options but to keep working, Taslima continued to work, and one day she actually passed out. And, she was taken to the hospital, revived, brought to the hospital. And when she was okay and they found out that she was okay, they returned her to the factory where she continued to work. And after 2 more hours of work, she collapsed and died. I mean, all for the price of a $15 sweatshirt. Taslima's life was lost for what apparent reason? Could have been avoided. We could have better laws, and we definitely don't need to have clothing that cheap if it costs a human life. Today I'm going to be talking about how we must fight for fast fashion to become more sustainable. Fast fashion has cheap prices, but it comes at the cost of way more than we expect. If we don't stop supporting the harsh practices of fast fashion, things are going to be ending very poorly for us. Our world needs this. Our society needs this, and the labor workers of fast fashion need this. We need to reform fast fashion. By demanding better from fast fashion companies, we will improve our living standard. So, how will reforming fast fashion improve us? Well, we can help save the planet. The process of manufacturing clothing is very depleting and toxic to the earth in general, regardless of how it was made or where it came from. Fast fashion really just exacerbates this issue more times than necessary. Author Anastasia mentioned earlier actually wrote about this, and she quoted that manufacturing garments come from manufacturing garments with toxic chemicals to the fuel burned to transport the clothing around the globe. The fashion industry has become the world's second largest polluter after the oil industry. That's a crazy statistic to hear. Something that we all purchase and we all use, and it's the second thing polluting our earth. We need to do better. We need to work towards better standards to improve this. Most clothes produced through fast fashion are made extremely quickly with cheap materials and by workers who are in tough conditions. This causes most of the items that we're receiving to be of poor quality and to not last long. A great example of this in my personal life is that my mom has kept clothing for decades that I've received and my sisters have received, and they work perfectly great. Jeans, shoes, shirts. But shirts now seem to not even last through the rest of the year. This is another issue of pollution that fast fashion causes. Expert Dan Thomas, the author of the novel Fashionopolis, The Price of Fast Fashion and Future of Clothes, talks about the damaging effects of fast fashion and how our environment is really taking a hit from it. She writes in her novel, and I quote, "Fast fashion produces mountains of clothes that go unsold or are discarded each year in the garbage dumps and landfills." This is extremely sad to hear because people, as we mentioned earlier, are losing their lives, and we're facing tough environmental conditions and effects from something that might not even be used in the year that it's made or might end up in a landfill. The second point that is affected by fast fashion and can be improved if we improve fast fashion is labor. Production done in many overseas countries partake in unhealthy and inhumane labor practices. Laura Anastasia, mentioned earlier, lays out the scene of a workroom in Bangladesh. She writes, "Young women hunch over sewing machines in a windowless workroom in the Asian nation of Bangladesh. Elbow to elbow in stifling heat, they assemble jackets." She continues to go on and note how the women seem to make hundreds and hundreds of jackets in less than an hour and are paid less than $3 a day for their work. Just a week or two later, after they've worked this hard and made zero profit, these jackets are shipped to the United States and sold for $15 as the newest fashion. It's really honestly sad to hear that they're receiving nothing and these jackets are being sold for extremely cheap prices. And for what? For them to not receive labor costs that they deserve? It's important to acknowledge that fast fashion does give many people the chance to make a labor. This is a tough fact to face, but a lot of people need these jobs. I mean, in poorer countries that these things are being produced in, this might be the only livable wage that they can make. Journalists Andrew Leong and Nicole Telfman, specialists in human behavior and personality, explain the opportunities that fast fashion offers in the world. They kind of go in to talk about how having a job is better than no job at all. This is a really tough thing to understand, but sometimes working in these poor conditions is all that people can do. They even go on to say that research has shown that the expansion of garment industry into these countries has helped reduce poverty in many of them. This idea that the fashion industry can help people is amazing, but we need to reform the labor practices to keep this something sustainable. If people keep on dying and we keep on seeing such poor labor prices being delivered to the people working, this is not a sustainable practice. We won't be able to continue giving these people a job or even getting cheap clothes to the people who need it. The third point is by reforming fast fashion, we can set a standard for what we expect for our future. Since fast fashion is directed towards young adults, and that's kind of their general demographic that they market towards, it's up to us to be able to make a change. This includes teen consumers that are even younger than us, which is kind of tough to say that we can put so much on to young kids, but we make up a large demographic of the people purchasing fast fashion. Author Anastasia and journalist, talks about how if shoppers would educate themselves on where clothes are made and how they're made and think carefully about how much they're purchasing, it would make a huge difference in the fast fashion industry with the issues it produces. Companies are not the only people, though, that are allowing fast fashion to create such bad effects. We do it too. We must demand more of ourselves, not only companies, to reform fast fashion. We can do this by speaking out on social media and writing letters to companies asking them to improve safety standards. Small steps make big changes if done by a lot of people. If we give workers a better chance to forge opportunities to work for their living wages, then we can make this a more sustainable practice. This is also why I voted to not abolish fast fashion, but reform it. It's helpful, and the low prices and the living wages that it offers are really valuable, but we need to reform it. This is not a hard ask. Many companies have already started kind of moving towards sustainable and more efficient procedures in producing clothing. Journalists Hikang Moon and Huan Hua Li, experts in economics and social issues, and fashion design and textiles, respectively. They write how fast fashion companies can actually make a difference, like H&M. They talk about how H&M has launched a sustainable apparel products that they market as their conscious collection. This production line could be considered a natural fit because these garments are made of recycled organic materials. This is amazing to hear because it lets us know that this is not something that can't be completed. We can work towards this if we all make steps towards refining fast fashion, and H&M is a great example of that. In order to keep the cheap costs and living wages that fast fashion offers, we must make more sustainable choices when producing fast fashion for not only our planet and laborers, but also for our future society. Rather than dumping clothing that you purchased or buying a surplus of fast fashion items online, think about what you're purchasing. Think about how much you're purchasing, and think about what companies you're purchasing from. You can also maybe take steps as recycling clothes into new clothes, buying secondhand clothes, and even renting out outfits to kind of help the effects that fast fashion is delivering. I hope that you guys take a step towards reforming fast fashion and really think about from now on what you're doing with your fashion choices. And maybe we can prevent more deaths like Miss Akhtar in the beginning, I mentioned in the beginning, if we reform these things. Thank you.